Every time I come back to this series, Scribbles and Sentiments, I always kind of go, man, it has been a while, and just like a lot of the other times that I've done this, man, it has been a while. This one will be a bit different. If you're new here, Scribbles and Sentiments is a series I made in which I basically make drawings with the goal of avoiding perfectionism, so I do less formed works that take a bit less time. Now the thing with these drawings is they are works that I put a lot of time into. And for a while I didn't put these sorts of things in this, but I think from now I am going to, because isn't it kind of perfectionism as well if I avoid putting certain works in this? You know. The goal will still be the same and the theme will still be the same for the entire series, but, you know, it's going to have a broader range with this in mind. And with this particular canvas that I'm showing the works for, there's kind of a common theme of most of them. These are for the most part pretty old works actually, and a lot of them were made during a time where I didn't have a lot of confidence. A lot of them also, I think all of them actually, include the same two characters, Melody and Wrath. They are characters that I draw whenever I feel down or just need something easy. They are basically my comfort characters. And it's nice that they have refs, as you can see in some of these, because I can basically draw over things if I forget, such as eye shapes or hair shapes or things like that. And that makes for a good practice for when I want to make sure I have eye placement right for them, nose placement, just certain features, things like that, because then I can take those practices and apply them. With the drawing you're seeing progressing now, I wanted to draw these two characters in sort of their true forms, you could say. Their more monstrous forms. Melody's forms are based on the more modern interpretations of sirens. They were first introduced in Greek mythology and were more bird-like, more along the lines of harpies actually, which are another creature from Greek mythology. But over time, they've been more intrinsically associated with mermaids and things like that. They've become more reptilian, more fishy. They've placed more emphasis on the disguising parts and the oceanic parts of the designs. And, you know, I kind of like that change. Like I mentioned, Greek mythology, oddly enough, has a lot of bird people. I mentioned the harpies, but the Furies are another example. And arguably the Sphinx as well, since it sometimes has wings. And it's not just bird and human creatures either. You have griffins, you have the Pegasus. I think the Manticore in some interpretations has wings as well, from like an eagle or something like that, though that's just off the top of my head. I grew up with a lot of Greek mythology, and not just in the read a lot of Percy Jackson kind of way, but there's this author called Doualores. I don't know the pronunciation of it, but he made a book that assembled all of the Greek mythology in one place, and I read that a lot growing up, along with many other interpretations and reinterpretations of Greek mythology, such as graphic novels, such as textbooks, just all sorts of mediums. Online blogs for a while, Wikipedia articles, yeah. With Melody's sideline though, I should also take a moment to talk a bit about Wrath's side. Since I mentioned harpies earlier, I will mention that Wrath's side is somewhat based on that as well. Harpies, furies, that sort of thing. And so it's more bird-like. And you can see I kind of wrestled with some of that, because I wasn't sure how bird-like I wanted to be. I definitely knew the feet, the claws, the talons was something I wanted to be a part of it after a while, because those look just so cool, and decided to add that as the hands as well to sort of give more of a monstrous feel to the design, to make it so that the hands were talons as well. Just ebb away from that human feel. But another creature that I'm trying to incorporate into Wrath's true form is the Phoenix. And it's interesting to try and blend those two together, because the main thing that phoenixes are known for are their fire-related abilities. So I wanted to try adding fire elements to Raph's design, since that is very much a part of her fire-related abilities. And it didn't entirely succeed. Like, Melody, I have a few things that I want to redo as well, but I had more clear themes in mind. I knew I wanted the siren parts, I knew I wanted it to be somewhat reptilian, somewhat fishy. I had drawn her with the fins she has on the sides of her head for a while now. The only things I were really uncertain about are the patterns you see on her face. I had liked the idea of her having the marionette tears you see in creepypasta and FNAF mainly are the things that come to mind. And I wasn't sure how to really blend those in with the scales you see all around her body. But Raph was definitely the more complicated one of the two, because drawing fire in this line style is hard for one thing, and I had the idea of making fire her hair, but that didn't exactly work since it kind of overlaid and masked some of the parts of her design, and it just didn't really feel polished in a way. It felt almost more Danny Phantom-esque, if that makes sense, and that wasn't exactly what I was going for. But I do have a few ideas in mind that came up once I was rewatching this that next time I'm making an attempt at drawing these two, or at least one of them, in their more monstrous forms, that I'll definitely try. Like, maybe a halo of fire is what I'm going for. I had an idea of the flames that I had in mind more something emotive that surge around Raph when she's feeling angry. Oh, and yeah, I should also mention that both Raph and Melody are girls. It is somewhat more obvious with Melody, but Raph is one as well. And I say girls, but these two kind of have an inherent immortality to them, and my rule with a lot of immortal creatures is if you're going to live for a very long time anyway, then you're probably going to explore your gender. And so these two kind of have a cis plus going on, but they also have a woman but also non-binary thing going on. So they're fine with she, they're fine with they. Melody is fine with a whole lot of pronouns, honestly. If you just asked her, she would be like, "Oh, well actually I have this whole list," and then hand it to you. So they're very fun that way. As you might be able to tell, I have thought about these characters a lot, not just in the drawing sense, but in the writing sense, and that's part of what brings them a lot of comfort for me, is they are this very fleshed out idea in my head. I will say that I'm also trying not to reveal too much about them, because I have future works that I want to do that involve them, so I guess in a way, a lot of information I reveal, I'm trying not to let it be spoilers. Because, you know, if I ever make that stuff, when I make that stuff, let's get more confidence there, I want to be able to share it with you guys and have those twists in mind and things like that. But, you know, little tidbits here and there, and a lot of me rambling about certain things that went into their design. You'll get a lot of that. That's part of what this series is in a way, is with letting go of perfectionism in art, I'm also letting go of perfectionism in how I speak, if that makes sense. I've been told in the past, I think I've mentioned this before, that these videos are very calming, and so I try not to change too much of what I'm doing. I try not to refine anything unless it's, you know, serious spill over my words, if it's completely non-legible, non-hearable, you can't make out anything, that's when I cut some things out. But if it's just, you know, like this, if it's just going on and on with filler words and stuff like that, then I find it fine. When I'm watching other YouTubers' videos, sometimes with certain videos, it's with the goal of getting to sleep. I sometimes do that. Just listen to a video while in bed, just getting to sleep, and I find that really soothing, so if I'm able to provide someone else with that feeling, then all the better. But yeah, now that we're past the lining and coloring, another thing I should talk about is, like, the shading on this is not exactly the thing I'm the most proud of. The version of this I prefer at the end of the day is actually the non-shaded version. And that very much comes from the place of I was not exactly the most confident in my art, and it wasn't exactly like, oh, I was a beginner still or anything like that. I think this is art I was making when I kind of fell into a slump, if that makes sense. There's this myth when it comes to art, when it comes to writing, when it comes to any sort of creation, that mental health issues will improve your ability to make art. And depression and anxiety very much have symptoms that interfere with your ability to create. You can absolutely have experiences with mental health and with mental illness that shape your art and inspire your art in different ways, but it's not the fuel, if that makes sense. Life itself, experience, is the fuel for art. Inspiration is the fuel for art. And at the end of the day, I think comfort can be a fuel for art. And I don't just mean in the sense that you make art when you're most comfortable, but when you start making art, sometimes you're seeking comfort. Sometimes you have to look for other things at the end of the day. Sometimes art isn't enough. I mean, therapy is great, let me tell you. And medication is great, let me tell you. You can't just rely on creating to be your joy. Talking to friends, talking to family. Art can be a way of venting, but in my opinion, it shouldn't be your only way of venting. You should have people you can talk to. You should have multiple ways of expressing yourself, and if you're listening to this, I hope that's the case for you. But at the end of the day, if art is your only method of getting stress out, then I just hope the best for you. I really do. I hope that art can get you through whatever you may be going through. Having finished with the monsters designs, we're now moving on to a side profile I did. This one I felt really nice making, honestly. I don't do a lot of side profiles, and it's something that I want to practice more when I made this. And I just really loved how it came out. Something you saw that I did at the beginning was line up the front profile of Melody's design here and make sure proportions lined up before tilting things. So the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the eyebrows, the ears, things like that. Shoulders, chest. Yeah. I think this was a tip that I learned from an online tutorial somewhere, and it's one that I definitely recommend if you're struggling with profiles, because that helps you get a sense of the anatomy. I also feel like with this one, the shoulders are oddly thin, so that's something I might want to consider in the future. It's a bit of a 3/4 angle at, the shoulders down, but the face is the main thing that I was working on here. I feel like side profiles of the body are a bit easier, although the arms and shoulders are a bit hard to sort out. In my more recent drawings, I've been making the shoulders of my characters much broader, and it's kind of a realism thing. Back when I was making some of these drawings, I still had this, I guess you could call it a stylistic choice, where it was more along the lines of anime proportions in a way. I didn't exactly watch a lot of anime when I was younger, I think the first anime that I can say that I watched was Studio Ghibli films, and that was definitely late in my life. When I got into digital art, I definitely drew some anime inspiration, but it was more from Google search anime, if that makes sense. It was more from, searching anime fan art and things like that. And oddly, Kirby had an anime influence on me because a lot of the humanized Kirby designs of the characters were anime designs, which, is partially due, I think, to the Japanese source, which makes sense. But yeah, that was definitely a partial influence. A lot of the digital artists that I followed and were friends with were also influenced by anime, so it was kind of a osmosis, if that makes sense. Like, as we learned from each other, we learned different things, took different things from each other that we incorporated, that sort of thing. But over time, my art style has gone a bit into cartoon realism. I still incorporate some things from the anime-inspired styles, like the eyes are very much kind of that blend between anime and cartoon and realism. It's a weird blend. The hands are definitely more anime and realism than in the cartoon specialty, and that sort of thing. This pose that you're seeing here, for example, is definitely inspired by a certain video game antagonist. This is also, oddly enough, a certain thing I do with Melody, where I won't draw most of her more fish-like features, her more siren features, but I will draw the fins at the side of her head. I feel like it just looks cool, and since I draw her with these headphones, I mean, I draw her with these things for like, I want to say at least 6 years by now. Crazy, right? But I feel like the fins could look nice with the headphones. So it's just a, I guess you could call it a stylistic choice or just a choice in general. Melody in particular takes influence from the pastel goth fashion sense, and I am absolutely in love with that genre of fashion. My own wardrobe takes a bit of inspiration from the mix of light tones and dark tones that you see, not just in the sense that you get like skulls and spiders and bones and stuff like that in the various places, but you also get the mix of tones. So if you ever see me day to day, I'll often be wearing, I don't know, black pants with a light pink jacket or things like that. And the pastel goth elements of creepy cute is hard to incorporate, I will admit, but I've been trying to get into pins and keychains that add that element. I have a few Kirby keychains by now that definitely tie in a bit to that, and a few pins, but oh my gosh, I want so many more pins to add to jackets and stuff. It's interesting. Ooh, real quick, I should talk about this one because this was a piece that I was making when I felt a bit stressed, and I was just like, alright, time to draw Meloraph. And Meloraph is the ship name for these two, by the way. Melody and Wrath. But I wanted to draw these two in outfits that went with each other. I wanted to do a rose theme and a bit of a monochromatic silver and gold theme. And these two are married, as you can see by the rings on their fingers. A bit of backstory on that, Wrath was the one who proposed to Melody, and Melody had no idea that she was going to propose that night, and it was just so cute. Some of their friends also went around to different places like, okay, we're making reservations here, don't act suspicious or anything like that. It was such a cute experience. They went to like, I think a mini golf arcade is what I wrote back then, and you know, one of those candlelit restaurants. I think what I had in mind back then was a spaghetti factory, if you know what that is. If you don't, I think it's a Pacific Northwest thing where basically it's based on this historical event? I don't know, just snippet of history where there was this trolley that broke down, I think it is, and that's sort of the theme for the restaurant. It's based, the full name of it is Old Spaghetti Factory, and it has just these lovely ambient lights and a lot of the trolleys around, and you can actually sit in booths in the trolleys and eat food, and it's a lovely experience. I know to some people it's probably going to sound so American, but I promise it's lovely. They have Mazifra covered broccoli, they have spaghetti of course, and yeah, it's just so amazing. But yeah, that's what I wrote for them back then, and even now they are still very much going strong and very much comforting to me to draw. Now, at this point, you've seen a lot of drawings of Melody, but as I realized, I hadn't drawn a lot of Wrath, and these days I'm drawing a bit more of Wrath because I'm trying to go out of my way to do so, because he is also a comforting character to me. Melody just comes to mind more when it comes to outfits and stuff. But with Wrath, I had been doing Picroos and stuff because she's pretty easy to make in Picroo, and that gave me inspiration for some of these outfits. Like, there was one that had a black and gold outfit, and I realized, ooh, those colors would look great on her, and there was one that had a gray shirt and these washed out blue jeans, and I was like, yeah, that would look great too. So that inspires the two left outfits, and the rightmost outfit that you're seeing is influenced by another Greek mythological figure that is Charon, or Charon. Charon is actually in Raph's story someone she is friends with. He takes a mentor role to her, and so I like the idea of her taking an outfit's inspiration from him at some point. it isn't something he would wear constantly. For one thing, as you might be able to tell, he isn't exactly secure in the outfit. He very much feels like it's not exactly her brand, if that makes sense. Wrath very much has her own style when it comes to the outfit she wears day to day. And Carry-On's outfit is not exactly it, but I did like the idea of putting her in that outfit. It's drawn with colors that I don't exactly draw her in a lot, and it was just really cute, honestly, when I came up with it. Plus, wide-brimmed hats. I need to draw more characters with wide-brimmed hats because they're just such a cool thing to add to a character design. Kind of going on a tangent here, but with that dress to the left, I want to mention that next time I draw something like it, I think I want to add more details to it, because the gold, I feel like I want to interweave into the design a bit more. The gold is actually what really made the idea of this sort of dress really pop out to me as something I wanted to draw, because it matches with her eyes. Her eyes, as you may have noticed, are this really golden color, and that, yes, just love that so much. Something I will point out with this drawing is, it is very much one of those drawings where I was once again in that slump and not exactly the most confident in my skills, and I kept going to a friend like, can this drawing be easy for once? And that friend, he kept cheering me on, so shout out. He's really great. And just when I finally posted the finished piece to my friend, he was just like, yeah, you did it! And I felt so great afterwards. At the end of the day, I really like this piece. There are some mistakes that I could point out, like the hands. Back then I had a habit of scrunching the hands a bit compared to the arms, and I think in the future I'll have to keep that in mind, because I was told by that same friend actually, hey, the arms get smaller as they go to the hands, but for some reason I didn't connect the dots so that the hands then get a bit bigger than where the thinnest part of the arm connects, if that makes sense. Like, you have the palm, you have the part where the hand sort of cradles into the fingers. The wrist itself is pretty thin, but it spreads out a bit. So there's a little anatomy tip for you, I suppose you could say. But at the end of the day, I just I feel like I keep repeating that I really like this fun in. But yeah, it represents drawing something and creating something despite the lack of motivation, and I feel like sometimes that's a really important thing to do, especially if you're looking into art and a professional viewpoint. It's really something you have to realize for yourself, because life won't exactly wait for you to create. You have to seize that moment, you have to seize that chance to create something on your own. There are deadlines that you will have to reach. There are people that you will have to share your work to, inevitably, if you're looking at this in a professional viewpoint. And so, yeah, just think about that for yourself, I guess is what I'm saying, if you're thinking of going into that. A tip that I will repeat over and over if you're going through a lot of art block is use references like they are your lifeblood, because art references can be a very handy crutch for you. And yeah, Firefly. Firefly in the background of that piece. But yeah, art references are something that really got me through these hard times. Now, this is the last piece in the Speedpaint, and it's one that I made when I was through the slump, actually. And it was another one I made where I just wanted to draw something comforting. I, was through of that slump, but I was having trouble making my hand move like I wanted it to, so I was taking my own advice and heading to art references, and I kind of that's another thing that I have to tip. Combine your art references. Don't just go to one reference in particular. Just mesh different parts that you like together. You can even, with certain programs, use the lasso tool and drag and drop things in a way, in sort of this amalgamation of hand parts and arm parts, just the parts you like. You can liquefy them together, and then you just have this it kind of looks like a robot in a way when you put it together, or like a, when you take different parts of a newspaper scrapping together and just make something like that. Or Blackout Poetry is another example of that. It's kind of the artistic digital art equivalent of that, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's how this drawing started, and then I just kind of went ham. Hair, I'd like to think, is my specialty, and with these two, hair I put a lot of detail into because Melody's hair in particular is just this poofy, wavy thing that can go everywhere at once if you let it. Another little tidbit about these two is Raph very much brushes Melody's hair for her, and sometimes Melody will get it tangled on purpose so that Raph and her can spend a bit more time together, just doing something a little domestic. But right now, this piece, I had the idea of Raph waking up from a nightmare and just automatically rolling over to Melody for support. This piece takes place in a bedroom that I drew, how many years ago now? A long time ago. And I very much drew the room trying to combine their interests. At the top of this piece you can see a little emblem peeking out, and that's a skull and two moons with one at either side of it. And that's very much Raph's side of the aesthetic. You can also see pillows with their respective colors behind them. So Melody's side has the light teal she has and the light blue she has in her outfits, and Raph's side has the dark blue and purple that she has in her outfits. And other things in this room that aren't shown in this picture are Melody's headphones are on a bedside table, there's a lamp with sort of a fishy pattern, there's large curtains that lead to an outside view, kind of a sliding glass door kind of thing, and Raph has the more shaded side of the room because she is very much a night owl, whereas Melody is a bit more of a morning person. But yeah, with that, I think that's all of the pieces I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and, distribute this video to your friends and stuff like that so more people can see my content. It really helps me out a lot. I will leave these pieces at the end of the video so you can see them all in their non-Speedpaint glory. And yeah, I will see you next time. Thank you so much.